Hey y'all, this is Rhino Tutorial 1. We're going to go over some basic things. So to start out with, you're going to go to Canvas, go down to week 5, and you need both of these files for this. So I should be able to download, and then I also need the other file, the Snowman file. Okay. So first thing I want to do is open up Rhino. So it should be Rhino 6 here. Just click. And what I want to do before anything else is get my shortcuts set up. So I have these shortcuts that you can import that make the shortcuts for AutoCAD the same as the shortcuts for Rhino. That's very helpful if you spent some time in AutoCAD because it will just automatically work, which is nice. So if you go over to Tools and then go to I haven't done this in a while and I have to remember to do this. Okay, so Tools, Options, and then go to, we need aliases, and then hit Import. And you're going to go to wherever you saved that first file you downloaded, the 2015 Mike AD Rhino aliases, open that, and then say yes to all that you're replacing all these and hit OK. So these now, now that there will be the same shortcuts in Rhino as there were in AutoCAD. Next thing I want you to do is open up the other file. So go File, Open, and locate wherever you downloaded that other file. And it is right here, Rhino Snowman Intro, open. Okay, double click on Perspective so you have your 4 views. So Rhino is a modeling program. It's math-based. It's called a NURBS modeling program. So it uses a coordinate system and it creates all these surfaces based on mathematical equations. So this is a little bit different than if you've used something like SketchUp or 3ds Max. Those are mesh modeling programs, and those approximate whatever geometry you want with lots of little triangles and lots of rectangles. So if you had a surface like this, for example, so Rhino does NURBS, right? So this is like a NURBS curvy thing. If I were to make a mesh of this, so if I copy this over, and if I can make a mesh in Rhino, it's just not what it normally does. Notice it asked me how many polygons. It asked me like how many triangles do you want me to use to approximate this? So if I go to like fewer and hit OK, you're going to notice that like this is the actual mathematical curve that I want, but the mesh is approximating it like this. And this is with very few polygons. So if I were to do that again and do more of them, so mesh, and I'm doing more polygons and hit OK, you'll notice that like now it's a lot closer. But it's still, if you zoom in, these are straight segments. It's not exactly the right curve. So what's great about Rhino being exactly in those curves is that it can be used to calculate lots of different things. So it's used for there's like certain plugins you can get that'll work with environmental software. It's used for parametrics. So it has all these different capabilities because it is not just kind of like dumb shapes. It's like actually thinking about what the shape is. On the other hand, sometimes that can make things not work correctly. It can make things look wacky. Sometimes it tries to make a solution where there is no solution and it looks bad. So like, you know, every program has its strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so NURBS modeling, great. So I want you to start out going to our top view. So you can double click on a view, and let's actually go over this quick. To zoom in and out, you use the middle mouse button. To pan, this is different than AutoCAD, sorry guys. Each one's a little bit different. You use your right click button to pan. If you're in perspective view, same, it's not the same. So in perspective view, you have to hit Shift and then your right mouse button to pan. Your right mouse button in perspective view does this, which hopefully, I'm sorry, I'm probably making you all dizzy. So zoom in and out, pan in perspective is hold down shift and the right mouse button. And then zooming in and out, and that's rotating. So just if you just want to like kind of revolve around your screen, that's using the right mouse button. So let's say you want to zoom into a specific thing. If you select it and then you hit zoom in and out with your middle mouse button, that'll zoom to that thing. Often what will help is if you hit Z enter for zoom and then S enter for selected, and that'll zoom exactly on that thing. It'll also make that the new point that you're revolving around. So for example, if I have this over here selected and then I want to revolve around this, you'll notice that it's still revolving around that initial point that I had zoomed to before. So in this case, to make it a little bit more centered, I'd want to again hit Z enter, S enter, and that'll bring me to this. And then when I revolve, it'll revolve me around that. Other thing, let's say you get way lost out in space and you can't find your object. If you hit Z enter and then E for extents, this is your command line up here, that'll zoom in to everything you've made. I think those are the basic navigation things that'll be helpful. I'll try to think of more as I go along if any come up. So for this tutorial, I just want you to follow the commands as we go and then upload your completed file to Canvas. So in top view, starting on top view, so you just double click on these to get to one of them. If yours don't show up like this, if you go to, I think if you go over here and do viewport layout for viewports, that'll bring you back to all four. And then you can double click to make one big. Okay, so I'm in my top view and I'm going to come over here to original. So I'm not doing anything original. First command we're going to practice is mirror. So you're going to, this time you do click and drag to select things. So if I click and drag to the left, it selects anything I touch. If I click and drag to the right, it only selects things that are completely encompassed in the square I made. Okay, so I'm going to select all this, type in mirror, my command line's up here, hit enter, and then it's going to ask me different things I want. And right now it's saying start of mirror planes. Where's my mirror plane? So I'm just going to draw where that plane is. You can hold down shift to make it to make it straight. And there you go, mirrored. I haven't put on any of my snaps. So down here, you'll see we have grid snap. This is very similar to AutoCAD. Grid snap, ortho, planar, O-snap, smart track, gumball, record history. Most of these we won't use right now, but I do want you to come over here and turn on a bunch of your snaps. So I put on end, near, point, mid, leave off center. Center's annoying. Int, perpendicular, tangent, quad, leave off not in vertex. Don't do project unless I tell you to. Project means that it'll only do it on, we'll get to that later, so just don't go on there. Okay, great. So that was mirror. Next one, rotate. So select both of these, hit rotate. It's going to ask you where the center of rotation is. Pick a center of rotation, and then it'll rotate it. If you want to copy it as you go, hit rotate. Over here, hit copy, yes, and then you can copy them as many times as you want around. Hit escape to get out of a command. All right, this one is scale. So select it, type in scale. It's going to ask you for a base point, and then it says scale factor or first reference point. So if I hit 2, it'll automatically make it 2 times as big. If I select it and type in scale and then do first reference point, let's say I wanted to go from here over to here. So it's a little bit simpler than AutoCAD. It cuts out a couple steps in there. Scale 1D stretches it just one way. So again, select these, scale. Oops, gotta make sure you spell right. So if you select here for a base point, select the end, then you can scale it. Did I just type scale instead of scale 1D? Hang on. Scale 1D. Select objects to scale. So it should, yeah, there we go. So it's going to stretch it just along that one direction. We're keeping it with all these flat commands. So array, I can select these, hit array, type array, number and extraction, type in 10, Number in Y direction, hit 10. Number in Z direction, hit 1, and hit enter. And it's going to ask you for the spacing. So draw a box around here. Actually, let's go this way. And you can see all those little things popping up, and you can change the spacing however you want to. And then make sure you hit enter to accept it at the end, or it'll disappear. Next one, trim, join, close curve. All right, so I'm going to start off these two. I'm going to make my snowman. So I'm going to select all of these, hit trim. And then just go ahead and click anything in between that you don't want as part of the snowman. Okay, and now that I've trimmed it, I'm going to join. Oh, sorry, I have to hit escape after that command. So now these are two separate pieces. So I'm going to select them and hit join. And it's going to make one closed curve. Often you want things to be in closed curves because that allows you to make them into surfaces and to extrude them. There's lots of things you can do once the curves are really closed. But let's say I had like messed up on that trim, and I'll even bring this closer. And so when I look from out here, it looks closed, but it's not. And I select it, it says one curve out of selection. If I type in select open curves, you'll notice that it's selecting this, it's an open curve. So I can hit it and type in close curve, and it'll close that up by adding a line segment, and now I have a closed shape that I can use. Extend, so we're going to extend this line to the top of the snowman's head. So if I hit the first, type in extend, the command line will always tell you what it wants next. It says select boundary object. So this is my boundary object. I'm going to select it. And then I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to select this curve, and that'll bring it out to that point. And hit escape when you're done. All right, offset. So let's say we want to make a snowman outline. I'm going to do what I did before. So I'm going to select all these. I'm going to trim. So TR for trim. Get rid of all the lines I don't want in there. Hit escape, join these together. Oops, not K, J. Join this together, and then I'm going to offset them. And offsetting one is fine. I can click to the inside or the outside. I'm going to click to the outside, and there's my offset shape. Project. So this one we need to go into 3D to see. So I want you to select these things so we can find them easily. Then double click on top, double click on perspective. Now type in Z enter, S enter, and that'll highlight, that'll zoom into this one thing. So you'll notice that right now, this object is above this curve, right? So project is going to put it onto that curve. So if I select these two, I select it in this view, but I actually want to come back to my top view. Just click on top view, then type in project. It's going to ask me to select the surfaces to project onto. In my top view, I'm going to select that curve and then hit enter. And if I look at perspective view, it's now projected onto that there. What's so helpful about that is then I can start to modify this surface. So for example, I could do my trim command again, and then I can delete out that underneath surface. And I have this kind of Swiss cheese thing happening. Okay, great job. So you have made it through all of these 2D-ish commands. Those are very similar to what we've done in AutoCAD. So you should have just the original one, your mirrored example, your rotated example, your scaled example, scale 1D, an array, how you trim, join, and close curves, your extension of that line to the head, an offset of the snowman outline, and this projection over here. So now let's go to more of these, a couple more somewhat 3D commands. These are more sweeps. They're bringing 2D lines into 3D form. So I'm going to want to look at all of this in my perspective view. So I'm going to highlight all of these, click on my perspective over here, and type in Z, enter, S, enter, and that'll zoom into all of those. And I can double click on perspective to make that the main window. Okay, first command here is called extrude curve along curve. So I'm going to type in extrude curve, oops, extrude curve along curve. Here's my curve to extrude. Hit enter when done. Then my path curve is the squiggle line. I'm going to select it near the top, and that's going to make that cool snowman thing. So all these commands, what's nice in this file is that they're already set up for you correctly. The kind of tricky thing is actually figuring out like where you'd have the 2D curve and the other 3D curve to make the shape you want, right? That's something that you need to start thinking about as you plan out your shapes. So I'll do that one more time. extrude curve along curve, curve to extrude, hit enter, path curve near start, click there, and that'll make that. All right. Extrude curve tapered. So this is a different kind of extrusion. If I select it, hit extrude curve tapered, and then I will tell it the distance. And actually over here, I want to change some things. So I want it to be solid. So you always have it, when you're doing this, you can tell it like, oh, I want it to be just a shell. Like right now, it's kind of a shell if you look at it. But you could also tell it you want it to be solid. So for this one, let's do solid. So extrude curve tapered. I want to change my draft angle to 10. That'll make it a little bit more tapered so you can see that better. So can you see how it's like getting wider? I can change this again to 30. And then you can really see how what that taper is doing to the extrusion, that it's making it get wider as it goes. And then if I hit solid, yes, now I have like some weird snowman table right away, right? Okay, so that's extrude curve tapered. And then, oh, I feel like I did these backwards. This is extrude, this is the normal command. So if I select it, hit extrude curve, just extrude curve. And I can make it solid, and I can bring that up as far as I want. I can also type in how far it is. So if I do extrude curve 10, hit enter, that's what it will look like. Okay, planar surf. That makes this closed curve can make a planar surface on the inside. A planar surface means that it's flat, right? It's all on one plane together. To make one, you need to have a 2D curve that is both closed and flat. It doesn't have any, like, there's none of this happening. So you see how this now is, oh, I actually didn't make that happen. Hang on. So let's say I was like moving this over there, and you see how that's like no longer planar at all? So that won't make a planar curve. But if I select this and type in planar surf, it's going to make a nice surface for me here. Okay, so there's things I can do with surfaces, which is why surfaces are nice. So one thing, I can blend surfaces. So here I have two surfaces. If I type in blend surf, it's going to ask me for the first edge. So I'm going to select the surface edge, and then it's going to ask me for the second edge. I'm going to select this one. Hang on, let's try that again. I thought I had this file all set up already. So I want to chain edges. So basically, I want to make sure that I have all the edges here that I want to put together with all the edges there I want to put together. So I'm going to select my first set. I'm going to hit chain edges. First edge, second edge. And then I'm going to select the segment for the second. And then I think I hit enter. And then, try again. Blend surf. Chain edges. Okay, now it's asking for a segment for second edge, so I just hit that. Okay, good. And then my seam edge looks okay, so I'm going to hit enter there. And it's going to try to find some way to make those two things come together. So if I adjust these, it kind of makes them like weird. It'll improve that that blend and make the two surfaces maybe look a little bit less crazy. I can also start like playing with all these curvature things to get what I'm looking for. So this kind of looks like an interesting pepper thing. I don't want it, I think I want it to be a little bit tighter. So I'm going to make these smaller. All right, and then hit OK. So it's blend surface. So some things give you very predictable results. Others, it's like you don't know what you're going to get all the time. Okay, offset surface. So offset surf. Oops, I spelled it wrong. There we go, offset surf. I can flip the direction, so I'm going to click on it to flip the direction, and then it's going to ask me for a distance, so I can type in 4 and hit enter, and then that'll make that offset my surface. So it looks a lot like an extrusion. You'll notice why it's different. So let's say I were to take, let's say I were to go back over to this one and do an offset surface. If I do offset surf over here, and solid, I'm going to make the distance 0.5 and hit enter. You'll notice that I couldn't extrude that surface in the same way, right? Like it's actually offsetting it, and it's making a thickness to it. So that's what offset surface does. Intersect finds the intersection between two places, which can be really helpful when you're creating geometry. So I'm going to select these two, type in intersect, and they intersect at that one line, so that's what I made. I can then use that line, for example, to trim one of these. I thought I could at least. Maybe I can't. Click cutting objects. Okay, it's being cranky. Oh, I guess because it doesn't go all the way through either of them. Fine. Okay, so that's intersect. A couple more of these, you're doing great. Okay, first one is sweep one. Type in sweep one. Select the rail. I always mess this up. You want to select the rail first, and then you select the cross-section curves. And hit OK, and that's your sweep one. Sweep two, you have two rails. So sweep two. First rail, second rail, cross-section curve, hit enter. And then you'll see how different that became, that shape is following both of those shapes. Hit OK. Loft, this is one of my favorite ones, use it all the time. Loft, select curves to loft. So you either need open curves or closed curves. These are all closed curves. Select them in order, hit enter. And then it gives you some options for how tight or loose you want it. So you could make this like tight, or you could make this loose. And then you can rebuild it if you want to. So rebuild with 10 control points, hit OK. And so it's using those section shapes to make a new shape. Pipe. This is great if you're making a chair or something and you've drawn out the lines for how things go. You select the rail, you tell the diameter of the pipe, and it'll make the pipe. You can also change the diameter of the pipe as you go. So you could be like, I want to start at this thickness, but then I want my next one over here, and I want it to be way wider, and then I want another one over here, and I want it to be smaller, and then hit enter. And that made some crazy stuff, but generally you'll see it's smaller and wider there. Okay, great, so those are all of the surface commands. Oh wait, I missed one, revolve. Revolve's a really useful one. Think of it like a lathe. So if I type in revolve, I'm going to select my curve that I'm revolving, and then hit enter. My revolve axis is like the thing I'm spinning it around, or the center of that lathe curve. So I would select this point, select that point, and then it wants to know the start angle, so I'm going to do 0, and I'm only going to go to 180 here. And then you'll notice that it spun it around to make a surface. All right, so those are all of my surface commands. So I would expect to see the snowman extrude along the curve, the extrude curve tapered, an extrusion, planar surface, blend surface, offset surface, the intersection where you're finding that line in between them, the two sweep commands, the revolve command, a loft, and a pipe. Sorry, this pipe is very messy. We'll delete that one. Okay, great. So last thing we're going to go over on this tutorial are called Boolean commands. So Booleans take solids and they make them into, it basically adds or subtracts solids to make more solid forms. So a Boolean to objects. So right now I have these kind of two, I'll do Z enter, S enter so we can see better. I have two kind of 3D snowman, right? So they're together, but they're not actually together. They're still complete parts. So if I do Boolean to objects, and then I select this one and select that one and hit enter, you'll notice that now they are one object. And I can go over here to what if I do, let's do X-ray. You'll see there's nothing in between there. It's just this is one object now. Okay, Boolean difference instead subtracts. So if I do Boolean difference, select what I'm subtracting from, so select the snowman, and then hit enter, and then select what you're subtracting with. So I'm going to select this tube and hit enter, and that makes a nice little hole there. Uh-oh, where'd he go? I'm going to select him. There he is. I'm going to try center. Okay, makes a nice little hole through him. Next one, Boolean intersection. So that's going to basically tell you what part of them intersect. So I could do Boolean intersection, hit the first set, hit enter, then do the second set, hit enter, and then those are the places that those two intersected. Boolean split. So I'm going to do Boolean split. My first one, hit enter, my second one, hit enter. And so that's very similar to the Boolean difference, except that do you see like how this is still here, right? So it kind of, it doesn't delete all the pieces involved, I guess. It just cuts it. It's not like deleting it out for you, but pretty similar to Boolean difference. Okay, Boolean union. So that's going to bring all these different pieces into one kind of thing. So if I select all these, type in Boolean union, and there we go. It's all one thing. So I will say the Boolean commands are the most fussy in that basically it's automating a bunch of different commands. It's automating an intersection with a split with a join. So sometimes the computer just doesn't do it right, in which case you can do it manually. The last one here is wire cut. So for wire cut, basically it's going to cut this 2D shape out of this 3D form. So if I let's type in wire cut and see what it asks for first. So wire cut, select cutting curve. So I'm going to select this, then select the object to cut. I'm going to select that and hit enter. And then first depth cut point. So I'm going to go halfway through and then I can show like the thickness I want here. And there we go. That's it. Hit enter to accept. And it kind of cut that lightning bolt out of the mouse's face. Double snowman's face, whatever. Okay, that is it. What does this say? Create a door with a frame. You don't have to do that. Please upload your file showing that you went through and practiced all of these for your first tutorial. Thanks.